Hello, everyone. Welcome to the On-Chain India podcast, where we are celebrating entrepreneurs. Today, we have Austin from Omni Network, who is joining us to deep dive in his, thoughts about Omni Network and the most obvious thing on fundraising. Both for early stage and mid stage founders on this. A bit background about Omni Network. They are essentially they're solving the unification of the rollups issues, which allows users and developers to allocate all the liquidity and users from the entire Ethereum ecosystem. Their journey has been pretty crazy. They've raised $18 million so far. They've got I think more than 7 million transactions, 400k plus users, and pretty staggering things. So welcome, Austin, to the On-Chain India podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate you having me on.
Cool, Austin. So let's deep dive, Austin, in your Web3 journey. What was your entry point into Web3, and what was that aha moment? Where you thought this is the problem that I would like to solve.
hmm Yeah, so originally I got pretty deep into crypto. This was my junior summer. I was studying computer science at Harvard, had an internship at Microsoft, and I didn't have to do anything for my job. I don't know why, but like I just didn't have to do anything. And so I ended up teaching myself Solidity and just really diving deep into Ethereum at this time. Started like mining for it as well and just like buying ETH. This was a bit before the 2017 like crazy cycle that we saw there. Um, but yeah, honestly, a lot of it just like clicked for me, like sovereign money and the idea of like neutral coordination infrastructure. Just a lot of it ideologically aligned with me back at the time. So that's kind of how I got involved in crypto. And I always wanted to build a startup after I graduated. So after this summer between my junior and senior year, I just committed to building a crypto startup. I didn't know exactly what the crypto startup was going to be, but I knew it was going to be a startup in crypto. And so I spent most of my senior year trying to figure out what are some of the highest leverage problems that I can work on at this time, and how do I queue up fundraising for that company. So this was my first company that I built 2018 to 2020, and now Omni, we've been working on this 2021 to almost 2025 now. But yeah, that's kind of a brief overview of my background in crypto and like company building in general.
Got it. Austin, one of the first, problems for, early stage developers to start is on finalizing the idea, right? Because when you're
Mhm.
starting up, probably have like two, three ideas where you feel, this particular, might be that unicorn chance, or, it might turn up big. So
Mhm.
what was your, mind map, or how was your thought process while selecting the Omni, and what was that moment where you were pretty convinced that this is the one that you need to go after?
Yeah. So with this, I think I'm going to have a relatively abnormal response, at least for crypto. Everywhere else in the tech industry understands that you must like learn from customers and pivot along the journey. That what you raise your seed round on almost certainly is not going to be what becomes that like unicorn, you know? So we've actually pivoted a number of times since we started this company. Omni actually, originally we built a DeFi protocol when we raised for this company. Um, and so we built a DeFi protocol. And as we were trying to expand access to all of Ethereum's users for that DeFi protocol, that's really where Omni came from. So we shifted to Omni about 2 years ago. And so I think actually my input here is uh, people in this industry, in the crypto industry, for some reason think that like it's the idea and like you have this idea and you go and like do this for like 7 years and like that is how you build a company. That is not how you build a company. I don't know why in crypto we do this. I think it's because it's like very public and like you have to build a community and like a lot of people don't know how to communicate their like learnings as they evolve with the community. But I think this has actually been a big problem in the industry that has led to a lot of stagnation. Whereas in other industries, people learn and they iterate and pivot. We just don't see that enough in crypto. That's kind of my abnormal take. I think a lot of people would disagree with me on that, but yeah, I don't know. I believe that pretty firmly.
Got it. Also, the next, part of it, Austin, is like once you have finalized on the, concept, I think the first is to get first initial, 15 or 20% of whatever you're fundraising through your closer circle, or people whom or leverage some sort of
Mhm.
contacts.
Yeah.
Now the first fundraising check is obviously very crucial, because you don't know how much to value upon your company, and that verifies, that changes across different segments. So particularly if any startup was raising early this year, or probably last year, it was like pretty low valuations, but now we've started seeing valuations pretty much high. So how should founders decide that my first check, whatever I'm raising, $1 or $2 million, should be in this particular range?
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it is very unfounded in crypto, the valuations at large, especially for like a seed round. Just kind of like, I don't know, like you just said. I don't know. A few months ago, they were kind of low. Now they're high. And what's changed? Bitcoin is up. Like that's really the only difference here. And so, honestly, my perspective on this, for how to think about a seed round is, um, I'm not gonna like say that there's a specific number that people should target, but they should get a feel for what other people are fundraising at, how much momentum they have in their backgrounds as founders, and benchmark off of there. Personally, I think it's rational to like go find. Let's say that the average you find is people are raising at like 15 million or something. Like, um, I think it's rational to go raise it 10 million, because what that is going to allow you to do is, one, it's going to maximize the probability that you can actually fundraise. I think a lot of people don't think about this as much, but like there is a path where you just can't fundraise. And this happens to a lot of teams. And so, number one, most important thing here is make sure you have the chance to build this company. Who cares if the valuation is a little lower? It's still 10 million, like, like, let's be reasonable, people. So, shoot lower than the average that you're seeing out there. This will make it so that VCs are seeing your project and they're like, oh, this is a good deal compared to what we're seeing in the rest of the market. Um, and it will also increase the probability that you can get better investors. If you get better investors, your subsequent round will be multiples easier. It is so much easier to go raise a larger Series A once you have like tier one investors in your seed round, at a lower valuation than if you had a higher valuation in your seed round. You kind of got like okay investors and then try to push that into a Series A. So I see a lot of people being greedy, and it's just like, don't be greedy. Optimize for seed and quality of investors.
Very well said. I think one of the other fundamental problems, that we oversee from a lot of founders is on two parts. A is the VC replies to them, "Hey, this market is like, pretty early for us. This is like, back in the days of 16, 17, where ZK Tech or any other new terms are coming. So we feel,
Mhm.
it is that sort of thing." And then I think, so how do the founders tackle to such sort of questions from the lead VCs or someone where they're potentially investing?
Hmm. Yeah. So my stance on this is, if you get hit with a question or a response like that, say, okay, cool, and move on. And then if they like circle back a week from then, you just need to have more momentum to show them. This is a very cynical take on fundraising, but it is pragmatic, and it is fundamental to how I was able to raise money. What you need to be doing is, I you need to be running like 10 to 20 conversations in parallel. I see a lot of founders like talk with one fund and they're like, oh, I don't know, it's like pretty good vibes. But the way that you are going to get those good vibes over the line and actually deployed is if you come back to this conversation with momentum from other funds, basically being like, hey, just so you know, like, just some hypothetical, like, I can't commit to anything in this conversation because like another fund is interested in leading, and like we had a discussion, I said I wouldn't like take on any other lead offers the next week. Like, you have to create a FOMO feeling to get things over the line. A lot of founders just talk with like one fund and it feels good, and then they get to the end, they kind of get like haggled down, and they're like, actually ZK is like a bit far out for us. And then cool, there goes 3 weeks, and the rest of your team's gonna be looking at you being like, I thought that fund, I thought we had good vibes with them. Why did they not deploy? And if you're fundraising, like your CEO, you're gonna be like, yeah, I thought there were, and you're gonna feel stupid, and it's gonna lower morale on the team. And so the most simple thing you can do is run 10 to 20 conversations in parallel. You literally should have a spreadsheet where you're tracking notes on each of them and the status and due dates on like when you are going to hit them back with new things. This is how you get rounds done, in my opinion.
One other follow-up question to that, Austin, is suppose a founder is there. He has got pretty amazing couple of angels who are introing him to say 4 to 5 other funds and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the most essential? Since you mentioned that we should keep like a tracking sheet of all the funds and have parallel conversations, it also means that you need to reach out to a lot of people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
generally, to reach out to these people, I think events is one other way where a lot of these VCs comes in. But the other issue that founders tell us is it's very hard if you approach them cold or without
Yeah.
any reference, right? So what would you say to a founder who is specifically raising, who has a couple of connects, but they want to leverage out and go out more deep into and conversations with more VCs?
Yeah. Never hit up a VC cold. It makes you look like you are begging for money, and it's going to make them uninterested in investing in you. Yeah, don't do it. It is so much of this comes down to like a social power dynamic, and if you hit up a VC cold, they're going to know that you are like desperate for capital, and yeah, it just signals like bearish on the founders at large. You need to be like extremely scrappy. So let's imagine, we're in a position where we have one good friend who was able to raise for a company. And past that, we don't feel we really have many connections. In that case, so you can probably get introduced to their investors. You should ask them for introductions to the shitty investors like to the poor, like lower quality investors. And then you need to train. You need to like get a few laps in regards to like your pitch, because it's going to be bad out the gate. It's going to be really bad out the gate. Most people underestimate like how clunky their pitch is going to be. You need to get a few laps in with people that like are less risky for, you don't want to go pitch like the tier one out the gate, especially because they're going to ask questions that like you're going to hear them repeatedly, so you can prepare better answers. So you could use your friend for intros to their investors. Honestly, I would also ask the friend for intros to other people in the space. Maybe try to put together an angel round first, and basically, try to communicate a vibe to the other angels. Like, hey, like we're about to start like kicking off, like talking with funds and stuff. If you're interested in joining this round, like, honestly, would love to just get like feedback. A lot of people like mentoring and like helping other people out that are at like an earlier stage. And so, yeah, try to collect like a round of angels maybe, and then get intros to all their investors. You need to be scrappy with like sourcing intros to investors, and especially intros that are like back channel positive, where the founder, that the like person referring you, can introduce you to the VC and be like, hey, this is blah blah blah. They're working on this. This is really cool. But behind the scenes, it needs to be like a solid enough relationship that they can directly DM the VC and be like, honestly, this guy's an animal. This guy can I'm throwing an angel check in this, and I'm like fully planning on making a bag here. So that is like another thing here. You need to like back channel as well. The TLDR, be extremely scrappy, like make it happen one way or another. Get warm introductions to VCs, because you're going to need volume to make it happen.
Great advice. Jumping the point to the Omni network, right, Austin? So you started with the journey. You raised your first round, through few of the closer network and few of the VCs, and then immediately after 4 months, because of the bull cycle or the market conditions, you almost raised more than 10x the valuations. Now it is very hard to document it down, or someone say that, hey, okay, I've raised this, and in next whatever 6 or 8 months I'm going to raise XYZ valuation. It is like it's nearly impossible to predict that sort of things. So how was your journey into it? And yeah, would love to understand more on that.
Yeah. So at my first company, I raised, I believe it was 800,000 for a seed round, and then built that for 2 years. And I sold it to Ripple. Worked at Ripple for a year so I could vest, and then quit to build Omni. Raised our seed round, raised I think 1.5, and then raised our Series A, raised 16.5. And the valuations were like 18 mil and 150 mil. So I've run 3 rounds. Kind of working through, sorry, what was the direct question there again? Just wanted to give like context on my
So
fundraising
when
background there.
like what was that moment where you said, okay, now the first round is
Okay,
done,
okay.
and
Yeah.
what was like, yeah.
So this a lot of it comes from my experience building my first company. I raised 800,000, which is like, $800,000. It's a lot of money, but for building a company, it when you start to think of bigger scales, you just can't really like hit those bigger scales with 800,000. So in starting this company, I was like, I am going to build a large company this time. When I raised 800,000, that was in a bear market, and I built that company entirely through the previous bear. And it was just like I had complete awareness and confidence. Like we need capital this bear market. Like this market's getting like really frothy. We need to execute while it's frothy because things are going to fall off a cliff. And like they did. We had Terra explode. We had FTX. We had Genesis, and just so many like of these big explosions that happened. We know over the past few years the market really did like slump hard. We had a longer bear there. So yeah, really, we raised our seed round and things were frothy enough at this time that it was like, I don't know when this is going to end, but it is going to end. And so we need to execute now because it's going to be nearly impossible to raise the amount of capital that we need to build a company of the scale that we want to a year from now. And so basically, immediately after our seed round, it was like full Series A mode. It was just like, what do we need to do in order to raise, $10+ million? And so yeah, it was kind of just automatic. Like right once we got the seed round money in there, it's like, hey, we have enough capital to like try and make this happen. Let's try and make it happen. We were kind of sprinting right out the gate.
You also mentioned, for raising their, next Series A round, you need to chase a metrics, right? Now,
Hmm.
chasing like a single metrics, I think what you highlighted your example was of the TVL part, how you launched the protocol, and in the initial few first days, you got a staggering amount of things. Now, in this current scenarios, I think two of the hot segments, which are coming is mostly like deep in an AI. Part of it's, which we're seeing a lot of founders, particularly building on this particular aspects.
Hmm.
So, how would you categorize to have that unique number or that unique thing to push, for the Series A part?
Yeah. So with the Series A, it has to be real, in my opinion. What you can do is you can go create some like narrative and like create a community where it's like a bunch of people who are clearly trying to like airdrop farm a project and like show that they're using it on testnet. That's going to be much harder to raise an actual Series A on though. In my opinion, the most direct way you can do it is you can launch something to production and get real numbers that are extremely difficult to argue with. So for us back in 2021, this was TVL. We got 50 mil in TVL in 2 days. And it was just like, hey, decisively, there's $50 million of capital in this protocol, and it happened in 2 days. That makes it so that when the investors go like talk in their investor committee meetings, nobody's gonna be like, but like, I don't know, are these airdrop farmers? Are these? It's just like, no, there's $50 million in this thing. Like, it's very difficult to kind of like push back on that data point. And so I think there are other metrics that people can use today, but they should be like extremely clear metrics that have that same effect of you can't really argue against them. It's like this is undeniable traction at like a decent scale here. And so this can be in the form, you know, daily active users, monthly active users is a little uh, tough because of like the farmer like frenzy that we have right now. But it's still something. Trading volume is another one. TBL, like you said, AI and like DPIN. DPIN is cool because you can have like, I don't know, devices like operating in the network or like devices purchased by people to operate in the network. AI probably is something like trading volume. But yeah, it just needs to be like, uh, okay, I'll give a counterpoint. It should not be like total assets unified throughout Ethereum. It's like could I talk about that metric with Omni? Yeah, sure, but like people are gonna be like, what? And I could say a huge number. I could say like billions and billions of dollars, but people would be like, but what does that mean? What is that like? Is that like real? And it's just like clearly some like very favorably made up metric. So it should be like something that uh, investors can go have a conversation about and feel like this is a real big number in production.
Got it. Austin, we talked about early stage, we talked a bit about mid stage part, right? And I think as the founders go from 0 to 1, 1 to 10 is relatively, sort of easy because you have that experience, you have more open connections, and I think you've got some amazing, people out there in industry to help, go move forward as well. But one of the most interesting other points come is on the token part of it, and I think we have seen like a lot of founders in our portfolios as well when they think of launching the token. And I would probably ask you a very direct questions on two part. One is phase one. If the founder for somehow has not managed to raise immense, he's just managed to raise like up to $5 million, what
Hmm.
should be the token launch strategy? And then sub question two is someone like like you guys who have raised like 15-20 million, how that token strategy should play.
Hmm. Yeah, I think honestly, you're going to be more constrained if you have only raised 5 million. Um, but the thing is, we raised 18 million, but we still like before the token was launched, still had a vast majority of that. And so I'm like pretty strongly of the opinion that uh, you don't need a massive team. And honestly, if you hire a massive team, it's probably going to slow you down. And so, really, what you should focus on with both of these is creating a product that is compelling, uh, ideally has product market fit, and if not, is as close. You have like a bunch of data and signal to like at least point you at least give you the confidence to say we're like heading down the right path right now. We are still learning, but like there is something here. And so for either of the scale of like capital, uh, if you, whether you've raised 5 mil or 20 mil, I think you should be laser focused on finding product market fit and like creating like a compelling and exciting company. Downstream of that, like token launch strategy, um, everything gets easier downstream of that. And so that's what you should focus on. I think if you've only raised like 1 to 2 million, my answer here is different. But I think in the 5 to 20 million range, it's basically the same. It's just like go find product market fit, and downstream of that, you can figure out like whatever like token launch strategy is optimal for you.
Got it. Coming to the Omni part of Steve, right? I think with now you guys have launched the token, have been through that entire journey, have some amazing, statistics numbers. How does, probably next, 12 or 24 months, look from your perspective?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, honestly, we are pretty exclusively laser focused on like scaling out the network. That is the number one priority for us. Um, and so everything that we're really focused on internally right now is about expanding order flow through the network. And so you kind of said at the beginning, Omni is focused on uniting all these different rollups and stuff. Really, our perspective on it is that they'll never be united. They'll always be fragmented. This is just going to be the case with Ethereum. And we're going to have Solana around and like other chains as well. And so these are never going to be like united. The important thing that we need to focus on actually is just abstracting away that technical complexity from end users. Users should not have to think about bridging, thinking about gas on different platforms, changing RPC endpoints. They shouldn't have to think about any of that. And so what Omni is actually focused on is abstracting away the complexity of all that and processing order flow through our network. So that's actually like what we're laser focused on from like a metrics perspective over the next 12 to 24 months.
Great. And when now, obviously, does you or your team reflect on the kind of FDV? Like, because once the token is launched, it's always about, yes, you're going to have multiples of your current statistics, probably in terms of users, probably in terms of, say, partnerships or deployments or something around that.
Mhm.
Do you internally have those metrics, to track so that, or do you have like a vision map that suppose if we achieve XYZ things, then the market cap or FDV, turns around over to it?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is another issue with the industry. A lot of people like think about FDV and like circulating market cap as like the first and foremost variable that they care about. And obviously it's related to the project. They kind of like people like think about this stuff, whether like the team or like people in the community, people think about it. But I do think that it causes a lot of people to overfixate on that number, which really is untethered from like the success that their product is seeing. We're currently living in a world where most tokens are valued primarily upon narrative and not upon like actual fundamentals, like activity going on in the network. Um, and so I believe we're changing. This will be a very gradual change, but I believe it's going to happen over the next 5 years. And the struggles that ETH, the asset, has seen over the past like 6 to 12 months are really the like canary in the coal mine with this. Like people are starting to inspect like, wait a minute, is this thing actually going to be like deflationary, or like are Rollups just going to take all the fees? To me, this is the first time in the like 7 or 8 years I've been in this industry that at large people are starting to think rationally about these assets. And while that might be bad for ETH, the asset, it is good for us as an industry. And so we actually don't like track FDV or anything like that because you can't like influence that. What you can influence is the success of the actual product and like how much value it's delivering to people at large. So that's really what we're laser focused on.
Cool. As we're nearing to the end of this podcast, Austin, want to have your quick thoughts on, how does the market looks like, I mean, general, sensation from your
Mm-hmm.
perspective over
Yep.
the period of next 12 to 18 months. And then the follow-up question for that is, what do you think would be the most, top 2 to 3 areas specifically for developers or founders who are just entering into Web3 space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the next, I don't know what's going to happen in 18 months. I do feel that over the next couple months here, until Trump is inaugurated, the market will be in a relatively unclear but bullish state because they know that, like, most likely once he is inaugurated, he's going to enact like pro crypto policies. And so I think for the next few months here, we're kind of like generally bullish. After that, I think uh, there's a fork in the road of sorts where he kind of like just doesn't follow through with a lot he was saying for the like crypto policy perspective. Uh, and things might turn bearish. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's more likely is that he's going to install people who are like generally pro crypto, and it will be like favorable for the American crypto policy perspective. Downstream of that, I think 2025 can be a good year. I don't know if it'll like last through the whole year. Um, and caveat, like it is extremely difficult to predict these things. But if I was a founder at an earlier stage and I was trying to pull capital into the organization through fundraising, I would be sprinting right now. I would be behaving in a way similar to how I behaved in 2021, where we had just raised our seed round and was like, okay, things are good right now. We don't know how long they're going to be good for, so we need to sprint over the next 4 months to build like a large scale production product that has like substantial traction so we can raise a Series A, because after this period, who knows what's going to happen? And most probably it's going to get bad. Things are going to explode. People are going to lever up too much. There's probably going to be fraud in like some area, and it's going to look bad for crypto. And so we need to make sure that we have capital to survive that stage. That is how I would be thinking about where we're at right now. We're not like at the peak of some crazy bull run right now, but like things are frothy. Like right after the election, we saw Bitcoin run up. Things are frothy right now. So people, if they do not have enough capital to survive the bear market, they should be extremely, they should be treating the next 6 months with laser focus and a ton of energy, because who knows what's going to happen after that.
Got it. One last question, Austin, is
Mm-hmm.
any couple of ideas that comes to your mind which you think can play out really well, both
Mm-hmm.
from fundamental perspective that this should be there in crypto, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just an inspiration for young devs.
Yeah, what I'm mostly focused on is the chain abstraction niche right now, where I think in the next year, by the end of 2025, using crypto systems is going to look fundamentally different than how it looks today. I think we've been operating in this like MetaMask slash Phantom world for so long, where you like have a seed phrase and you change your RPC and you like have got like I think we kind of have Stockholm syndrome about this. We're like, oh, that's how you use a blockchain. I think by the end of 2025, we'll kind of sneak blockchain into the back end of regular websites, where people will just like, I don't know, sign in with Google and they'll like click buttons and stuff. They won't think about like cryptography or like private keys or anything like this, they'll just start to notice that they're like picking up their data along the way, and they have like assets and stuff that they can use it across these different websites. So this is what I see. Over the past 3 years, we've invested heavily into infrastructure, and I think we are seeing all of this sewn back together under chain abstraction right now. And this will enable far more consumer-friendly applications. If I was a founder right now, at the early stages, I would be building with this in mind, knowing that like the user experience soon will be able to onboard like 10x more users, because the technical requirements and complexity are going to lower like by orders of magnitude. And so I do think that like applications and consumer oriented applications are going to be very, very viable in 2025. And that would be a very compelling, exciting area for people to build in. Yeah.
Thanks, Austin. We're almost, end of the podcast. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for deep diving in both Omni Network, the future plans, and also a lot of fundraising advice, both for young and mid-stage founders. I'm pretty sure this will help a lot of people over here in India, and definitely we'll see some exciting success stories in next few
Mhm.
months from this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on, and all the founders out there trying to raise. Good luck. I tweet about this stuff a decent amount, so feel free to follow me on Twitter. Honestly, I hit a lot of people back when they DM me looking for advice on things. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter.